What's up,
Hey,
bro?
what's up, man? How you doing?
Pretty good. I like the setup.
You like the setup? Looks good.
Looks pretty snazzy, man.
All right, cool, man.
Bro,
Well,
professional, man.
yeah, I got some people help me out with some shit, so looks pretty good, I think. But
How'd you create the background? Did you have like a tech guy do that?
actually, I created that image, and then I sent somebody, my buddy Paulo. He's really good at this shit. He got like the real people, real talk put into it, and all that. That kind of format just comes by itself, and then you can just change your background. If you want, I'll give you his contact if you want it for yourself.
That's okay. Yeah, thanks, man. I haven't thought about. I haven't had any thoughts branch out of the podcasting, but
Oh, you probably do pretty good at it, man. You got a lot of knowledge and fucking a big following now. Your Instagram has been blowing up, bro.
yeah, it's blowing up. I honestly, I gotta give credit. Um, Follow. I'll give you a guy showing tech. He trains with us, and then the caption stuff, bro. So add captions. If you do little snip when I see you add your snippets to this, add captions. It makes like a fucking crazy difference.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try not to swear on the podcast too, by the way.
Oh yeah, no worries. I record these so I can edit shit out. Usually when I talk to people, sometimes after the podcast are like, oh, you know what? I'd rather not be in there and not be in that. So usually before I post it, I make sure that nobody wants to take anything out. Just in case people feel comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Um,
like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna try and talk positive, like you said. No government.
no,
Shit.
brother, you could talk about that's why I call it real people real talk. You could talk about anything. I think it's positive that people actually speak their minds. You know what I mean? As
Okay.
long as there's like a positive outcome for it. You know what I mean? But I want to have you on because again, like your message for your online is growing. But I also like the coaching that you do for the physical fitness and nutrition. I think that's a huge thing. Like that's changing people's lives. And a lot of people they're not educated on that, or the things that they believe are really outdated. Maybe we can start there. Just start talking about like what made you want to share this kind of information, and what are you getting from it, and how do you find it's affecting the community?
Yeah. Sorry, you cut out, bro. Can you repeat that one more time?
I said we can start with talking about how now you're sharing, the nutrition and the physical wellness with people. Why you started doing that, and what you see happening in people's lives because of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The honestly, general wellness and nutrition is something that definitely the last couple of years it's more of a passionate snowball effect that's happened to me where um because I work with all levels, right? Like what made me first get into martial arts was I always had an ambition for fighting, right? And I still do. But the more you get into that and even the older you get, the more of a deeper understanding you get, of course. That's just life. So when you really look at health and being a really good fighter, you got to be really healthy. Okay. So, before it was like every action, absolutely everything I did was like to be a better fighter, to be a better fighter, to be a better fighter. But ultimately, you have to be the best human before you're good at anything, right? To be a good coach, to be a good fighter, to be a good friend, to be a good boyfriend, whatever, right? So, yeah, like, so a lot of my studies come holistically. I don't really have any formal, college, but most of my stuff comes from like a very strong hands-on knowledge of just, you know, mistakes and triumphs. But I do have some formal knowledge like precision nutrition, sorry, and where it's more sport specific nutrition. And my girlfriend, she's practicing right now in school for holistic nutrition. So a lot of hands on in the sport, in the field of health. A lot of people in my community, a lot of my friends are in similar practices, and but yeah, honestly, helping people get healthy and from a whole holistic approach. People have to understand the word holistic is not just even food, not just training. You know, when most people think healthy, right, they think in a very simple dynamic, and it should be simple for people at first. You know, sure, you know, maybe just working out is a big step for somebody, or even just freaking eating an apple, eating more plants, or eating, you know, more wholesome is a big step for somebody. But the further you go, there's so many subtle things that can make a huge difference. Like, did you even step outside today? Your friends, do you even have any friends that have a positive impact? Are you, you know, are you watching too much TV? Are you scrolling, right? And these are sometimes when you speak on these smaller things, like, did you go outside? Clients are like, okay, just get to the meat, right? Like, can we just work out? You know what I mean? Like, no, people always think that it's this like one big thing, right? You see this in fitness a lot. People, especially if you're talking just fitness, people go to train, and they want the utmost intensity, because a lot of the time people are like punishing themselves in exercise, right? They're actually so out of whack in so many aspects that when they train, they're making up for it, for all their out of whackness, right? And but when you really could take your focus, right, and you truly actually split it into everything that like, again, all the aspects, relationships, food, environment, like your environment is the one word, it encompasses everything. And when you can focus that equally on everything, right, it's no different than striking. Look at it, like, it's like you can't just focus. You're a martial artist of all. You can't just focus just on boxing. You have a large game, right? Sure, you maybe have one aspect where you're focusing on boxing, but or certain periods where you are, but you have to shift. And but anyway, yeah, people always underrate the little things, the simple things of life. And it's hard to hold people accountable. It's hard to get them on that path. But um, yeah, you said it earlier. What did you say? You said a lot of people's approaches are outdated, and to nutrition, and that's a good point, because it's just, you know, even in my nutrition practice, the last thing I do is just hand people a meal plan. I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore because it doesn't work. We live in a time where you can go on your phone and you can honestly get a cheaper and more efficient meal plan than what I'm going to give you. I shouldn't say more efficient, a cheaper and simple meal plan with recipes and whatever. But why do not people don't stick to that, right? Everyone knows to eat healthy. Like, eating wholesome foods isn't that hard. Like, most people have heard that message before, but why can't they do it? And they can't do it because health is a massive being healthy and being unhealthy is a massive encompass of things. You know, you say your shirt's wicked, sold, not for sale, right? Like, it's the same thing. Like, we're at sale and they're trying to sell us on everything, everywhere. We're on
100%.
sale. You know that message. We talk about that all the time. Like, you know, you go to the store, boom, you're brainwashed with like advertisement with foods. You know, you're like we you know, Western society, you know, where we are encompassed with a lot of workload. A lot of that workload isn't what people really want to do. You're unhappy. You know, you come home, maybe you're not happy at home with your lover. You know, you got kids. Some of it is good stress, but some of it is bad stress. And even if good stress is too much, like, I love fighting, I love training, but once you get to a point of like training for a fight, you get to these areas where you start hating training because you're trying to achieve more and more and more. And sometimes, yeah, it's just finding what it comes down to is finding that balance, and broaden your scope of what's going to get you there. You're not going if you struggle with, you know, a lot of people don't even realize, like, if you're overweight, you know, it's not even coming from overeating or not exercising. Like, you got so many issues now, environmental, like adrenal problems, um, like thyroid issues, injuries. Like, everyone's got injuries. Like, it's actually crazy, the level of layers to poor health that people just don't even.
Man, I was dealing with so many injuries. Every time I was training, something was getting fucked up, and I was like, "Why is this happening?" I think I'm fairly healthy, But I started doing some fasting, and I didn't even do it for health reasons. I was doing it for religious reasons. Just by the fasting, I lost weight, but what I didn't account for was how much inflammation I had in my body. And inflammation went down because I was fasting and I wasn't allowing certain things to come in my body. And when things weren't coming into my body, I can kind of assess, there was an automatic reaction. When I started eating again, I started feeling like this again. So I was like, wait a second. And then I would cut those things out. And the fasting helped get rid of inflammation. And, you know, the, you made a very good point. It's not just about the physical fitness, it's your mental health and everything like that too. Because if somebody's depressed, they're not going to feel like cooking. And if they don't cook, they're going to order. And if they order, they're going to eat shit. And this becomes a habit, a perpetual habit that they get stuck in. Because at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to your habits. What are you doing? And that's why people know healthy eating is the way to go, but they don't have a habit of doing so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, that's perfect. Like that message, the physical and the mental, right? It's so connected. And people always argue like, do you start with the mental? Do you start with the physical? And the point is that they're both important. But yeah, one thing I know we've talked about this, Mark, but like I got a lot of my strength training from functional patterns, and one thing they talk about is mechanistic thinking. Okay, and this has really helped me. But mechanistic thinking is basically one definition. You can define it in many ways, but it's your relation to your mind and your physical and your mental. So your mental feeds your physical, and your physical feeds your mental. And I actually heard someone recently talk about it outside of functional community. I swear it was Tony Robbins actually, and I think we all know him, and he's a pretty reputable guy. And he actually touched on this. Don't quote me on it. I think it was him, but it was someone really reputable. But the point is that yeah, your inward reflects your outward, and your outward reflects into your inward, right? So like if you see this in relationships, right? Like if someone is really struggling inside, they have a lot of problems, they're going to keep dating like the same people, and those same people toxic people are going to keep surfacing until you learn that lesson inward on how to deal with those problems, right? And yeah, it's the same with so the Tony Robbins was talking about how actually the physical, and this is a reality, like we are in the physical more than we are technically in the mental, and the physical is what one should focus on to get out of the mental, right? Like it's like, sure, there's a place for antidepressants and whatever, but is popping that pill really changing your physical environment? It isn't. It's the environment, the physical environment around you, the people, your habits is what is affecting this primarily. So, for example, exercise is that simple, overrated kind of maybe way of saying where if you can fix the way you move, if you can fix the way you move in reality, you act in reality around you, you will eventually start to change this. And there's always arguments like people will say, no, you need to learn to like meditate and sit with your thoughts first and yada yada, like etc. And but if you were to really choose one, I would lean more towards focus on the physical, go to the gym, and then yes, obviously there's so many practices that are great for your mind, meditative, and whatever, and exactly that. Look at your injuries. You took the actionable choice of even fasting, and that's a physical action, and totally fasting is known for being healing, and the coolest point about fasting is that it shows our body's potential with even the absence of freaking food, like just the absence of just being still, right? This is the emphasis on the mental, is the emphasis of stillness, not even eating. And there's people, you ever look into those clinics like in the States where people like reverse diabetes and they reverse cancer fasting for like up to like 30 days and stuff?
It's because what your body starts to do and how it starts to regulate your systems as a defense, because it knows it's not having any nutrients in. So it starts discarding a lot of the shit that's in your body it does not need. And it's kind of like a hard reset to your levels, which is what a lot of people don't have. They have, too much of this, too much of that, or they're lacking certain iron, or they're lacking certain things, and because they're lacking certain things, and then they're putting this constant foreign like sugar and shit like that into their body, they become susceptible to getting sick.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. But
But I think it's like the chicken, it's like the chicken and the egg, which come first, because I do agree. If we focus on focus on the physical, so someone who's out of shape, don't worry about how you feel, don't worry about what your goal is, just show up.
yeah,
Just show up,
perfect.
start working, and you might not see the initial difference, but it is happening. And then it's always like they lose maybe 5-10 pounds, they don't really see it, and you start to see it mostly in your face when you start to lose weight. But then it'll take that one teammate or that one friend or somebody in your life to be like, hey, you lost some weight. And just the affirmation that somebody noticed it, now it's like creates this fuel. That validation just gave you
Yes.
fuel and gets you excited, and then you're like, okay, fuck, it's working. Now you believe in it. There's a moment now when your brain believes in it, and then that gets you pushing through to the next threshold. But it's funny because even if you're starting with the body, once that trigger happens where somebody gives you that validation, something happens in the brain now. So the internal part now gives you the extra fuel for your external part. But some people, they'll go to a gym, and it's hard, especially for new people who are out of shape. And you see this all the time because that's your field, right? Where somebody will come in who's overweight and they may be self-conscious, and because they're stuck in their own head, or they're looking around like, is anybody looking at me? People don't realize everybody's doing their own shit. Nobody's looking at you. You know what I mean? But sometimes
Yes. That's a big one.
yeah, sometimes they get caught up in their own head. So because the internal part has a deficiency, they're not able to manifest that externally, physically. So yeah. I think it's more of like the type of, I think it comes more from like what baggage are you holding on to when you walk into that gym, or when you decide to do something. If you're somebody who has been nurtured all your life and don't have those kind of baggages, then it is definitely the physical first. It's a more tangible orientated goal. Where some people who is having the internal baggage, they need to get that mental first before they can actually perform uh, externally with the physicality. I don't know if you would agree with that, or if you've seen that in your coaching.
Yeah, I think no, I think it's a good point where you're saying even there's so many individual differences, and the point I was making was definitely simplifying the message, because it's like I do agree with your point. The message I was more so coming from was just because one thing that I've learned as a coach, and I think you've learned this too, is because I've seen you coaching, you got to always like gauge the room, and sometimes because I do try to live very passionately, and I try to I work very hard daily. Like I'm always studying, I'm always taking information, and sometimes it's like you have to gauge where your person's at to get to the like being a coach. I was talking to someone the other day. I was like, being a coach is like a translator, right? And being a coach and a student. So it's like, as a coach, how well can you translate to the individual? And then as the student, how well can you translate
The
and
message.
receive, right? Like, because I could, like, in fighting, like I could say hands up, but what does that mean as a student to you? Does that mean at your chin? Does that mean at your temple? Does that mean at your lower eye cheek? You know what I mean? And but what you're saying is definitely a much more in-depth approach, and it's beautiful, and that needs to happen where you do have individual differences, right? Like most of my fighters, they're in the physical, they're grinding, and I gotta tell them, like, calm down, rest, sit, go home, breathe, meditate, sit with your thoughts. Like, oh, I gotta train, dude. You train like 4 hours a day. You don't need to train. Like, actually sit there, talk with me. Why do you need to train? Like, um, that's something I learned later on in my career. Resting is huge, and a lot of these things come from stillness, right? A lot of even insight and gains come from stillness, and that's the mental. And like, I've talked to you, like, meditation, prayer, um, breathing, like those are kind of what help you really get in tune with that mental. And um doesn't do, even like, and you can go hard on the mental too, just as the physical, like those three ones I just said. But even sleeping, like when I'm in a fight camp, it's freaking hard to get home because like most Muay Thai gyms train late, right? I used to train late, get home or I'm working too. I gotta pay my bills. Come home and get to bed by 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. so I can get a proper 8 hours plus. Like a lot of people, like we live in a culture of the rat race hustle culture. And like even
Unfortunately.
to this day, I tell people I nap or I tell people I get 8 hours plus, and they're like, "Oh wow, lucky you." And I'm like, "Yo, I work hard to make an
Yeah,
effort to do that
you made
because I
that
have
choice.
to."
You made that choice and you prioritize time. That's all it is. Prioritizing time for the shit that matters. Now, what matters in your life, that's up to you to decide and to put, categorize that on your list of what's important, your priorities. But no, you're a very good coach, and your students are very physical because you remain very physical. You lead by example, which is another thing I noticed about you. When you're coaching your fighters, how do you approach them based on personality, whether or not you need to touch them more in that mental space or that physical in that physical space to get them to get to their goals?
Oh, really good question. You know, someone who I think who I've learned from on this, who's honestly amazing at this and is unique in the field, is like my coach Steve, right? Steve
Great
Lee.
guy. Great guy.
Um, Great guy because something as I think you can vouch for, Mark, in martial arts, and I think you're in tune to this message because you are someone that you're skilled in various arts is and you're able to mesh them, right? You have this ability to mesh them. Like you're not just a JKD guy. You're and I understand the definition of JKD. It's kind of like what I'm talking about is what Bruce Lee says. Like um one of his sayings I like is and I might be paraphrasing this or mixing it up, but style is a trap, technique is a prison, or it might be backwards. But the point of that message is just, and Henry Hoof says this too, is who we work with. As long as they go out, as long as you can hit them and they go out, it works.
That's
Like, what
it.
does it matter? Why does it care if the elbow's in or the chin's down or like? Sure, we can have arguments on what's more efficiently, but and that will always be there. But the point of it is that circling back to what you said, there's so many individuals, so many personalities, so many body types, so many interests, so many age differences that to train someone purely, like even in using Muay Thai, just like bouncing their toe and just hands like this, and to train everyone the same like that
It's not going to work.
is absolutely ridiculous and goes against what every martial artist knows, Bruce Lee. And it's like no one's listening to the actual message. Like, what's the saying? I know you're listening, but you're not really hearing me. You know, like,
Mm.
and
That's huge.
that's huge, right? And again, I honestly believe Steve Lee has mastered like this. Like he's been coaching a really long time, and all I'm just trying to take is for his formula and just elaborate on it and just add. And I've been able to do that where yeah, like let me tell you an example. We just had one guy, Aiden. He just fought on the weekend,
Is that the
and
kid with the mullet?
the mullet. No. He fought too. He fought too.
Yeah,
But
he's cool.
Aiden,
I love seeing that kid work. I love his haircut.
Ryan's the best. You
Yeah,
know what? Ryan's an
hard
amazing story.
worker.
I'd love to circle back and talk about him because he's a powerful message too.
Absolutely.
But before I get to that, Aiden, really quick, this big 190 redhead, like
Oh, okay, yeah, I know he is.
hard hitter. But see what I'm trying to say is he fights almost like a boxer, kickboxer, right? And in our gym, we have a lot of different, almost personality like fighters. You know, no one really looks the same because again, we find a healthy balance in a place where we can honor personalities and not shape them pure traditionalism.
That's
And
cool.
but Aiden does things where like he breaks the rules. You know what I'm saying? Like in a Muay Thai, he'll drop like he'll do like a shallow Philly shell, like not a deep one, like a shallow one, and he makes it work. Like he shoulder bump and punches, bop bop. He's hitting you, and you rarely will see that in a Muay Thai fighter. And one day, again, or the coach and me, you know, early on, like I see him do that, and I'm like, something screams inside because as you know in Muay Thai you shouldn't do this, you're going to get arm kicked. Traditionally you wouldn't train someone that because they're going to get arm kicked or they're going to get elbow, but he makes it work. He finds a way to make it work, and maybe one day, you know, I'll eat what I say and maybe he'll get caught because of it, or maybe he won't. We see this in martial arts all the time. People learn to break the rules and find ways. And as long as they're at a mature point, right? Like inexperienced or new people, like they should follow everything tangibly and like exact. But as one can grow, you'll this is how you cater to interests and dislikes. And that's how you have personalities. That's how you have expression. This is martial. What's the second word? Art. Art is about expression. It's about expression.
100%.
And, I think you can align with that because I've seen that with your students. You have a lot of personalities. You cater to different ages. And you've been able to like mesh your Kali, your knife. I think self-defense, in especially your field, where like I don't consider you like a traditionalist, like purely, like you obviously give homage to that, as I do. But and I admire you for that because you're able to mesh that, and you're starting to see that more in the MMA world, of course, because people are meshing styles and they are learning to it. But it's very rarely you see that in, say, traditional settings, like, or singular martial arts settings, like we're a Muay Thai gym, but we're really not, and or like a kickboxing gym, boxing gym. But we're able to find those personalities and allow them to flourish.
I think that's the most successful gyms because, whether you get it from JKD, whether you get it from this, whether you get it from that kind of ideology, anybody who's successful is going to learn how to adapt shit that they necessarily were not used to. Anytime you fight somebody who does something effective to you, they're gonna that thing that they did to you, they give you a hard time, you're gonna extrapolate. So you're gonna take some of that home with you. Because why wouldn't you? If you've got a tank, I need a tank. If you got a tank with infrared, I gotta now get the tank with infrared. Otherwise, I fall behind and I lag. I started with traditional martial arts because that's what I had access to. That's what I found, and I loved it. I loved how it changed my personality and gave me discipline, and it let me work all the internal shit I had to work out. But I got my ass kicked at a throwdown, and so I was like, okay, well, fuck, I need to learn combative side too. So I did that. I never competed like a lot and did because that was never my goal. My goal was more of like I wanted to make sure I would be able to handle myself in the street because I used to get into a lot of fights on the street. But then I realized when I get into a gym, oh, this is a different type of fighter.
Different.
These are type of fighter. However, I also have seen on the flip side of that, I've seen very good fighters get messed up on the street because they're used to a rule set.
Or
right?
like a big glove or something.
Right. And so like these blocks don't work the same way because they're going in behind your wrist and they're cracking your ear, right?
You mesh that well.
Different.
That well for sure.
Right. So that was my kind of like because I understood what real like fighting was, like altercation, like violence, let's say. I understood what real violence was, where in the sense that like I got jumped, I've been in fights and stuff like that. So when I went to like martial arts schools and they started showing me stuff, I had a better filter to say like, no, that's not going to work against somebody who really wants to hurt me. But I can appreciate the artistic value.
Critical thinker. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was lucky. When I met Joey, I was like, hey, Joey, I want to learn JKD, but he gave it to me because he also has competitive athletes. He gave it to me in a way that was applicable. And so because I had that as an instructor, kind of like how like Steve is, he gives it to you, but he lets you play, he lets you find your own within
it's a hard balance, but it's hard. There's no perfect formula.
And that's why, like I say, these gyms are successful because they understand objectively, like as you said before, wonderfully, martial art. And there's a big distinction. Martial is, objective. Like this is our goal. This is what we have to do. This is the parameters and this is the responsibilities. You have to make this work. The art value, if you're just talking about art, you can flower it up and make it look nice and, do it for physicality, like your flexibility and all that stuff. But when you put that art combined with the martial art, you have to find the right balance between the both, because if you're too combative, you're just going to look like a cookie cutter of the art of somebody else. And if you don't have enough of the combative, you just worry about being your own, moving the way you move, you're not going to be very effective in your fight. So I think it's just a matter of people knowing what they're training for. And some people train for just fighting and they're not really worried about the art, and that's fine. But through the fighting, they're going to learn about the art regardless. It's just not going to be their primary. And then people who are doing the art, that's fine. You don't have to fight. here's the art of it. But the problem is when the artist thinks they're a fighter and the fighter thinks he's an artist.
Yeah,
I
true.
don't understand what they are. I think that's the biggest thing. So I tried to make sure I kept a healthy dose of reality in both aspects.
Yes.
And I think that has kept me honest, and it's also let me know where I stand. Like, no, I'm not the best Muay Thai fighter, but when I fight, people's athletes, I do okay. Why? Because I'm not necessarily coming to them like a Thai fighter. Like a lot of the guys I spar with at combat, they know me as the JKD guy. I have Muay Thai training. I've
Yeah.
done Muay Thai, but I don't look like the typical Muay Thai guy either, though. And I like
Yeah.
that because I do some things that are different, and maybe that different thing helps me, keep that guy on, a little bit respecting because I'm not coming in with exactly what he expects me to. So it helps me. If I just box a boxer, I'm going to get my ass kicked, but you know what I mean? But if I do things a little bit differently, I still know the basic, the fundamentals of boxing. I can still exist within their matrix, but I do my own thing that makes me different. Then it makes me an anomaly. That's the way I try to look at it. I don't try to be, I have to be myself. And I only was able to be myself through the training with instructors like you say you have Steve, I had Joy, right? And they're both very successful trainers. And that's a huge thing because I've seen other gyms too. And I go to other gyms or I've done drop in other gyms. It's like, we have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
They're more worried about their image
Yeah.
than they are the student. And that's a problem.
Yes, they're more worried about the image than the student. Yes, yeah, and I think what you ultimately just saying is like over the years you obviously develop your own opinion and ultimately you just followed what works, like and as long as you're in tune with reality, as long as you like, okay, yeah, I'm getting hit, okay, I adjust, and then if that adjustment works, keep doing that adjustment, right, and the point is that you do have that street experience and you've been around good coaches where you're able to, yeah, like you're able to mesh that historical training and that real life experience, because it is hard for young students, for me, because it's like, you've had this like where it's like, even the other day I was teaching someone and then I go, okay, you do this, put your arm here, and then you're going to do this. And then there's always that student that goes, well, what happens if they do this? Right. And it's like, yes, that's called chess. There's always a play to everything. But ultimately the king of defense is your ability to adjust, whether it's what's the best blocking we know, wall, like a good guard, whatever you call it, shell a guard. It can take a lot, but just like you said, it doesn't work all the time. Like if you're on the street, fist slip through. So what do you have to do? You have to adjust your guard, or you got to slip, you got to whatever, move your head. So ultimately, you just have to keep sniffing out what works, and you will always find the truth, right? Maybe you think something works now, like maybe this is working. That guy in the Muay Thai gym, maybe this is working, and then boom, he gets head kick, and then, okay, buddy, it's not working, right? Are you listening to that reality check? A lot of people don't. And so as long as you're following working and you're being honest, you will always find that. And one thing that's kind of cool, I think, you were talking about, where how I kind of categorize martial arts is, I kind of categorize in two ways, where I look at things like from a modern perspective and then a traditional perspective. And just like you said, like, you can speak tradition. You have a traditional approach to your things, and so do I. But I look at everything as an advantage and disadvantage. So you have gyms that are more modern, more traditional, and traditional. The advantages are culture and the history and the homage, paying respect to like what has worked and what has got our sports to us today. But tradition, can lack evolution, can lack change, can lack
100%.
new ideas. And then the same with modernity is modern training, brings evolution, brings change, brings different minds. But, sometimes new isn't necessarily better. Like we're seeing that in society. Like everyone's so progressive. Everyone's so like progressive about everything. And it's like, man, we almost need to go back to like the old ways, man. Like, because this is getting a little out of hand. And so it's the same in martial arts. Like, if you get someone new who thinks they're being all progressive, they're like, oh, well, that really doesn't work. No, okay, it does. You've been training for 3 weeks. Okay, shut up and listen to me. And, you know what I mean? Like,
or it doesn't work for you, or it doesn't work for you, right? Like,
yes,
that's the other thing too. It's not about what I've come to learn, man. Is like and this is why I like Bruce Lee. This is what attracted me to GKD. It was the one line he said is the artist is more important than the art.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up on being in a crystallization of doctrine. You can learn anything from, like, for example, you have a Thai kick, right? You have the swing kick, you have a hard, that's a hard kick. That's a lot of power. You're hitting with your shin bone. Sometimes people hit with the instep or the ankle and it goes a little bit further up, but for the most part, you're hitting on that shin bone. Then you look at a kick like Savat, like they have in Savat, right? Where they have the shoe on. Now they'll do a swing kick, they'll do a round kick, but they don't use the shin. They use the point of the toe. Why? Because they have a shoe on. And some people back in the day, they used to have like metal protrusions on their shoes so that they can cut you with it. So that round kick, the mechanics are almost the same. The only difference is in Muay Thai, let's say, you can hit in, or hit through. In Muay Thai, they'll hit through. They're thinking about cutting through that with that kick. Will we agree on that? That's you're smashing into that. You're using that shin bone. Or in Savat, they hit the target, but they recoil it quick, so it's more of like a snap kick, right? Mm-hmm. So the difference in those two kicks is one is like a baseball bat, and the other one is like a ball peen hammer, right? So which one's better? It depends on when you use it. That's the way I look at it. Like one might be something I go to more often than the other. But if I'm kicking somebody in the body and they're just covering all the time, I'm putting damage on their arms. But maybe if I use my toe and get behind their elbow, and now I hit a smaller surface.
Or even around their guard on their temple.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? So now I'm looking at it because I'm problem solving with skill sets. Right. And now this screw bit doesn't fit in this hole, but this one will. So one is not better than the other. What makes it
And you're actually cautious. You're not just habitually doing something. You're actually like reacting.
Exactly. So that's the fight IQ. That's the important part. It's not the person. You give anybody a shovel, you give anybody a pen, they're not going to create the same or build the same thing, right? Even though you know how to physically move the pen and make a line or a circle, you can't draw the same picture as me if I have something more inside me to create more.
Yeah.
So that's the part of it that I love. It's like, okay, the fundamentals should be the first priority of someone new in training. The mechanics. Learn the mechanics. Don't worry about the why yet. Worry about the how and the what. Once you have that down, once you have that down, then you can play with the why.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah, because people come in too often sometimes with why, and it's like, that's why I think it's important. You got to have trust in your instructor, man. Do your research on like who you're going to, and just don't give me no whys. Like, you've been training for 1 year. Don't ask me why, unless it's coming from a place of maybe having a little bit more in depth. But like when it comes from a place of maybe doubting the technique, that's when it bugs me. I'm like, don't doubt the technique. Like, you're not in a place. Just learn how to do it. Yeah, get the reps.
Yeah,
finalize and trust what I'm telling you. And no, that's a good point. Focus on, you said the how instead of the
how and the what, and then later on the when and the why.
Yeah. Very, very, very good point. Totally.
And the thing too about traditional martial arts here, they hide behind their inabilities and skill with that hierarchy. Let's say,
right.
This is what drove me away from traditional martial arts, and I started looking at more combative martial arts. Is the don't ask me questions attitude saves them from exposing their lack of skill. From traditional martial arts, I'm speaking about.
Yeah.
Because if they are no longer able to do it, which gets harder when you're an older instructor, like when you start to get older, your body changes. Whether or not you stay in shape or not, your body starts to change. You're capable of doing. But just because you're not capable of doing something anymore, it doesn't mean how to relate it for you to make it work. Right? Like look at a coach like Freddie Roach, right? One of the best boxing coaches. The guy used to box, had a stroke or whatever. He can't do what he used to do, but he sure as hell can explain it to you
and get the message.
Able to do it. Look at Customato with Mike Tyson, right? So that's the other thing. So we need to respect our instructors, because some like you're a very rare breed, and that's why I respect you and I like you. You're very well spoken. You're a humble guy. You articulate. You care about your clients. But you also have a great ability. And that's not easy to find because not all instructors can teach and fight, right?
Yeah, true.
So this is a very good, like, so that's why I say, that's why I want to have you on here, because you're somebody who can speak to both of those things, right? But back to what I was saying, for the traditionalists, is a lot of people will say, well, Sifu or Sensei, why can't they? Oh, because just do what I say. Sometimes they, especially in Filipino martial arts too, they'll say that because they don't have an answer, or because they haven't really thought about it and they're not prepared to answer. So they'll use that authoritative figure and the traditionalism of the art where you don't ask me. I think
Right.
it's good to ask your instructor, but I also think, like you say, sometimes it's like, listen, man.
Yeah, I think it's a stage. It's a more appropriate
Yeah,
form,
but it's also
appropriate
the
stage.
relationship you have with your student.
Yeah.
If you know your student is generally asking you because they're an inquisitive mind and that's how they learn,
Yes.
then I got no
Personality.
problems. And if I can't do it for you, be like, okay, watch this fight with so and so, whether it be GSP or Manny Pacquiao or whoever, right? Watch this fight and look what happened when this person did this, or look what happened. Look how they used this technique when this person did that. And
Yeah.
then you come tell me. So now instead of just giving them the answer, give them some homework, let them look and see as a highest level as possible, because then they'll believe that, right?
Yeah.
You say, oh, because when I fought, I did this. Well, you're a professional athlete, so it's different. I'm not a professional athlete. So I like to use professional athletes, right? I'll be like,
Yeah.
look at this person. You see how this person was able to negate this technique by doing this technique, and then they had to adjust it this way, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, go look at that and then come back. And then we'll talk about it, and then we'll try it, because now they believe it because they see the highest levels doing it. So it's not just like what can happen. Of course it can happen, but look at how they adjust. But here's how it also succeeds. Here's how it actually works. This is when it works. Because things will work and then things will not work, and they don't work for everybody. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just it's a hard thing to kind of relate to, especially an inquisitive student, right?
Yeah. 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 And oftentimes too, like I'll often say to them, is it not working because, okay, is it not working because, is it just not for you, or have you not done enough, or do you not understand it enough,
Yeah. Did you give it a chance?
or especially later on is where, you're using fighting as an example, your student. So in fighting, you categorize fights. You have like CBA in Muay Thai. So you have C being more inexperienced, A being more experienced, then you have open, and then you have professional, right? So it's like, arguably, yeah, when your students start becoming B and A and more fights, or even just more years, like we have, people that have been training, and like, even similar to yourself, like I don't think you have any formal fights in a ring, but like, again, that being in the gym is more IQ than even than like, because of your experience alone, you could hands down give it to people that have been categorized B class or whatever. And but yeah, I think shaping the individual, especially as more time goes on, is the key, as allowing them that flower to flourish later on. Like, I will be really strict for enrichment early on,
You have
but
to be.
with time,
You
with
have to
time,
be. Yeah, you have to be, I think.
you know, you let it go.
When the WKF was still around, when I first moved up to Oshawa, I left combat and I started teaching a Sanshao program out of Oshawa Wing Chun. And I had like 4 or 5 students that stay with me like pretty much their whole high school. Oh no, no, he's back. He's back.
Yeah,
Cut out there for a second.
yeah.
Um, but I had these students that were with me for like 4 or 5 years, right? A couple of them still train with me. Um, but like when I started teaching and we started getting them to the kickboxing because we couldn't really find too much Sanshao competition, man, I was not. It was a new world for me, and I was just concerned of making these kids do well. And I don't think I had the. I don't have the. I didn't have the experience in coaching for kickboxing competitively at that time. I had experience coaching for like traditional stuff. But man, we won a middleweight championship K1 under the
That's
WKF, and we won national. Right, I had
not
another guy win the national. So I was able to translate my lessons, but to see them do it, and then one of them went and trained with you guys after uh, Zachary Van Dyke.
Oh yeah, man, I didn't even. So I knew he went to Oshawa. I actually am just putting two together that, like, you.
Yeah, he was my student.
So were you with were you partner? Was that when so Sean Kreitz is there, runs it
Yeah.
now, but
Yeah.
then I believe Chris Martin was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Chris came in. Chris came in after me. He was my replacement because I don't give a shit. I'll say it, but they were pushing their program, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, I had took a bunch of like I had a kid that was like 200 pound, 200 something pound, drinking pop, playing video games, and we got him down to like I think it was like 165, and he won the middle. I no, can't remember what the weight.
That's
And he won the middleweight, and he won against the guy who trained in Thailand and fucking had 5 fights, and he won.
professional, dude.
Right.
Awesome.
So, but I attribute that to the bond that I made with them and pushing them physically. But anyway, but yeah, so he wanted to have like he was pushing for a lot of students to compete at the time, and some of them didn't want to compete. And I said, like, listen, if they're not ready, I'm not putting shorts on and they're not going in.
There you go.
That caused a riff. And I'm like, it's not about, I don't give a shit about your brand. I give a shit about these kids. I'm not forcing them in. You put on shorts, you
Yeah.
know? And that caused a riff. And then Chris came into the picture. I hold nothing against personally to Chris. We sparred. I got no problems with him. I don't agree with how they did things, but honestly, it was the best thing to happen to me to leave there.
Yo,
But
good for you, man. No, they gotta want it. They have to want it, man.
yeah, and when I left, they all went with me. The only person that stayed was Zach, and that's because we already had a fight. He already had a fight booked, and that was for the provincials. He won a provincial championship, and he was like, he was feeling a ways about it. I'm like, listen, man, you trained hard to do this fight. This isn't about me. This is about you. I know I coached you. I know I taught you for 3 years. I know who helped you. I know that. I'm like, so I'll be there for you in spirit, but like, go do your thing. It doesn't matter if these guys are there. You know who helped you, and I just want you to win. I want you to do well, and that's what happened. He won, and then after he won, they're like, oh, we're gonna get you this, we're gonna do that. So he stayed with him because it was easy. I had to reassert myself. I had to reestablish myself, right? So that's when I went and worked on that, got my certs that I needed to do to be able to continue on that path. But I'm looking at doing it again. In fact, actually, next Friday, I'm bringing like 2 or 3 prospect
It's cool,
students.
man. I was just about to say we gotta link up.
Yeah, no, and
Or the alliance, bro.
I'm sparring again because I got over my ACL injury. So man, I could fucking use some tips from you for sure. But I talked to Steve. I'm looking to bring a few students there next Friday, just to kind of get them exposed to higher level and build that community because I'm a new program starting up in the gym. And to have access to you guys, I told him, I was like, yeah, let's go there, spar with these, make some friends, learn some shit, and build a community. And let's get this shit going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's what it's about, man. That's honestly all it's about. Literally, again, is the community, the family, the friends, the growth. The growth is the main one. Like everyone's just trying to be happy, live a better life, man. And honestly, I couldn't be doing a better job. In terms of the career I'm in. Like I'm so fortunate to do what I do, and just to every day, people leave happy at the gym, and
Yeah, I see it.
it's honestly, I believe, it sounds so cliche, but I think martial arts can save the world. I think that if everybody, found, a gym that they resonated with, or a sport or a martial art that they connected with, and it doesn't have to be your whole life like me or you. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be invested to the degree that we are, but allow martial arts to at least be a chapter of your life, especially as a kid. You know,
Yes.
you have all those personalities that, again, there's some bad apples that ruin it for us, but they look at us as fighter, like just goons, just hitting each other. And yeah, you have those types, but again, through those really difficult things like sparring, even if you didn't even spar, the drills, the pad work, the environment, be around a fighter. Some of the best people I know are fighters, and it's because they do hard stuff. Like nothing, it's kind of a twisted saying, but nothing teaches peace better than violence. And you don't need violence to understand peace, but like,
I
look
think
at
you do.
you do, you honestly do.
To an
It's like
extent, I think you do.
some of the healthiest people are so healthy because they were extremely sick. You need those dualities. And this is a perfect time. I was going to tell you a story about Ryan. And Ryan's one of my students he's been training, I think since he was 6 years old. He's just turned 16. Okay. So 10, almost a decade. And He's 3-0, full contact fighting. He's the kid. He's the kid with the mullet,
Right.
rocks the mullet like a champ. Okay,
Right.
but the main emphasis I want to say on Ryan is just he's kind of like the example of one of the greatest examples of freaking kids and human potential, man. And what I mean by that was that he was never like the most athletically in tune kid. He was never the most aggressive kid at all. He's actually a very sensitive, sweet kid. And but since 6 years old, he was like Steve and I joke like we're like, dude, you used to be a crybaby, but look at you now, and he's rocking it. And sure, like much respect to his parents. His parents, we have a very close relationship with his parents. They probably had to kick him in the ass, made him go to training. I'm sure on a lot of days, but now he's at a point. This is part of him. It's part of his life. His parents don't gotta drag his ass to training. He's showing up. He's putting in the work. He's a completely different kid. And I'm not saying that martial arts taking. I don't even take the credit. I'm saying I'm not even saying martial arts is 100% of the credit, but man, it's stuff like that like honestly gets me up in the morning. Like I have my own personal ambitions, but my personal ambitions honestly are like nothing in compared to like what you actually get from coaching and serving people and watching them grow. And and if I could just see like I honestly am an ambitious person. I think martial arts is only going to go up, and I think it can be for coaches. I think it can be fulfilling. I think it can be profitable. I think it can be one of the greatest things people can do. The whole health and fitness industry and martial arts is part of that. But Ryan, to see Ryan's growth, and I see it all the time. Ryan's just one individual. It's unique. It's hard. It requires a massive approach from parents, friends, and whatever. But that's that type of stuff that gets me up. Just like what you said with that one guy you had, man, you got him off pop, got him off this. It's man, like
Yeah.
just seeing that, man. That's all that was. Again, the fight was the leverage, was the tool to get that student's ambition to fight, that passion, right? Passion is like it's cliche. It is passion is the way you got to like follow your interests. Your interests will grow into passions. And that guy had an interest in training, then it grew into a fight, and then look, he got off pop, and that was just a tool
Oh,
to
it changed
make
his
that
life.
person healthier.
Now, like when he used to get in this trouble, his parents would ask me to talk to him. Now the he's an entrepreneur. He makes his own money. He's doing great. He stays fit. He doesn't fight anymore, and it's the conversations I have with these kids. Like Zach's in the military now with the Navy, working as a Navy
Yeah,
seaman or whatever. And he'll message me and be like, "Hey, Sifu, those 4 years of high school that you helped us, you helped shape."
Zach's a great guy, man.
Oh, he's
Always.
a great kid. But like you said, it is, and you said something earlier that it was kind of said like lightheartedly, but I think I think there's more to what you said. You said martial arts can save the world, and honestly, I believe that because if we look at it in a few different aspects, number one, with our society right now, people are so weak-minded and so
Yeah,
emotionally weak. What you learn in martial arts, like you were saying with your student there that you were talking about, is he used to be a crybaby, but look at him now. Well, that's because martial arts will get you out of your ego and it will humble you and it will temper you and it will make you stability, it make you emotionally strong. It'll give you the tools you need to withstand adversity and keep moving forward. Tell me the world doesn't need that. On the other aspect, look at how many people are sick. Look at how many people died of COVID because they were very sick. I'm not talking about elderly because we all get old, but even being old, you want to be healthy, right? Look at all these people that are overweight or eating shit that's making them cancerous or having these allergies and stuff like that. Well, exercise will help get rid of that and combat that. So you get that in martial arts, right? And then my last point was just slipped my mind, but regardless, it's you have. Oh yes, my last point was if you go into a martial arts gym, how much do you see racism going on in there?
yeah, never.
You don't, or politics even. Not
Yeah,
really.
yeah. You got every color training. You got liberals training with fucking whatever conservatives. You got cops training with drug dealers. Even sometimes you got
And that's
every
because
level, bro.
yeah,
Everyone's coming together.
And that's because they're all working towards a certain goal. And guess what? When you punch somebody in the face, or when you sweat with somebody, or when you bleed with somebody, you cannot help but respect that person.
Yes. Boom. Yeah.
And once you respect
Yeah.
somebody,
It's impossible not to.
you will exactly. You know, my father told me this, and I'll never forget this. He said, "You'll never know a woman until you sleep with her, and you never know a man until you fight. Really know a man until you fight him, because those two are the most animalistic and purest acts that we commit on earth.
Yeah.
And in those two things, you'll find out if someone's selfish, if they're weak, if they're, you'll find out about them, right? And that's what I'm saying. At least, like all my good friends, I've fought them, and that's why they're my good friends, because I respect them, because I know there's a line that we cross, and they will stick up for what they stand for, and I will do the same. And because we know that, we can respect each other, and we don't have to do that now. And that's the thing. The other thing too is that famous little snip, that short from Peterson, Jordan Peterson, where he's having an interview with a guy, and he's saying, "Oh, you're saying that men should be dangerous, so you're promoting violence." He's like, "No." He's like,
No.
weak men are the dangerous ones, because they are weak. They are going to be doing the shit. You know, strong
Yeah.
men don't need to do that. And I think that's such a
Yeah.
beautiful way to explain that, because kids who do martial arts from a young age, and I think especially in jiu-jitsu, um, just because you don't really like spar right away as a kid,
Yeah.
but like you'll roll pretty quick in jiu-jitsu, and then having someone's body weight on top of you and not being able to move and stuff, like that's a really shitty feeling, you know. And
Jordan
it's
Peterson also has a similar saying where he's basically defining martial arts and he doesn't know it, but children should do dangerous things
yes,
safely. That's
yes,
martial arts. Doing dangerous things, the most dangerous things, you're teaching your kid violence in the most safe parameters of coaches and equipment and etc. And that's martial arts. And you can't beat that. You know what I mean?
no, it's so much for their character development, but it also gives them real like parameters. Like I know that most kids who train martial arts, they're not the bullies. It's
Yeah.
always the kids who don't know how to fight who are picking on the little ones,
Yeah,
because
they're insecure and they just need some type of validate, something to feel good about themselves,
right.
and they just that's that typical thing.
And usually it's because they come from a troubled home.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you give that kind of power or that or those tools to a kid when they're young, they're not going to let themselves be a victim. They'll have the tools to protect themselves, but they'll also respect violence more too, because they understand what's like. Man, I used to think I could fight until I went into a gym. I used to get into a lot of fights, bro. I used to be a stupid kid, right? And I remember like when I started learning martial arts, the first thing I said to myself is like, bro, I'm not fighting anymore, because if I'm learning this, what does the next guy know?
What did it do to you? It tamed you,
Humble my ass
right?
right now.
That's something that a lot of people don't understand with martial arts is there's training and then there's taming. People want to cancel violence. People want to cancel shitty attitudes, but that will always be there because what you said, there's kids that come from troubled homes. There's kids they're just anger tempered kids. There are aggressive tempered kids. There are competitive tempered kids, and you can't cancel that. So what do? You learn how to tame it. It's the same for me. I got into like a handful of street fights, but I just like the challenge, and I just didn't say no, and I never picked a fight a day in my life. But and I stuck up for people, but
Yeah.
when you have those personalities like you said that maybe you got into fights or whatever, you get into training, you get that out. As a guy too, you have to understand there's testosterone. Like fighting is a very primal thing from the beginning of time. Like there will
100%.
always be fighting. There will always be fighting. Some of the most peaceful cultures, the Shaolin monk, they understand peace, but they practice violence because they understood this. The Bushido are the same. The samurai were farmers. Leave them alone. And then they
Yep.
realized part of human nature is not to be left alone. There's always a bully. There will always be a bully. That is part of being human. And we cannot accept that, but we can learn to work with it. And you have kids that need to be tamed, and then you have the quote unquote geek types that need to be trained and built up, and they could use actually that aggression. They could use that, right? There are cases where kids need to learn how to push back, and if they can do it physically, then they can do it verbally. And I'm not saying ideally physically first, but like when you learn those confident character traits, um, through the physical. You know, what is it? Gracie has a saying. He's like, you know, a kid will not enforce. You know, I'll butcher that saying, but think about it. If you know what this is like, I can more confidently say to somebody, "Don't do that. Stop." Stop doing that, whatever it's related to, maybe it's something physical or not physical. Because if it ever did go south where this person want to get physical with me, I'm at least confident enough that it can go that way. So I have more confidence with my language. Not saying I want it to go physical, I absolutely don't. But I have more confidence with my language because if it ever does go south, I can handle it. And I wish that upon anyone to walk with that confidence. I wish that upon anybody. Right? Sure,
Well,
there's probably, yeah, like there's a lot of people out there that could beat me up. I'm not saying I'm invincible, but I have that.
but
And
that confidence comes from the martial training because you are, you know, you were taught to, you were trained to stick up for yourself. You're trained to have that. What's that word? It's confidence. It's a confidence you get because you test your abilities. You know what you are capable of, not capable of, right? But even without fighting, you can say it to somebody with compassion. You can say,
yeah,
"Listen, I could easily just fucking elbow you in the face right now, but I'm choosing to be a good person, and that reason is because of the lessons taught in martial arts,
yeah,
right?" And if we just take the fighting out of it, look at that. Look at the ability. Most people don't have the ability to even say that shit, bro. That's what I'm
no,
trying to. That's why I think society is where it is right now.
yeah.
We are being stripped of rights. We have people, you know, friggin' twerking in front of kids half naked,
And
and
you said it,
people are
bro.
scared.
It all comes, if you were to narrow it and oversimplify it, it comes from weak mindedness.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
that's, yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
We
like,
need to teach this to kids because and because the kids grow into adults, and we have generations of kids growing up soft and have become these weak, impressionable people who have no moral compass, and because they don't want to do things for themselves, think for themselves, or deal with the ramifications of things being taken away from them, they are going. They are just following that line right off the cliff. And thank God for people like you and all these other coaches out there who are still training these kids to be strong, self-thinking individual people. Because man, we're gonna need that more than ever, and they're gonna stand out more than ever.
no, you as well, man. Like, I know, I believe, like, you know, we're small fish, we're in our communities, but at the same time, like, I try not to take myself too serious, but like, man, it's it gets me up in the morning. Like, I do believe that's the value. Like, and that's the air, that's the way we need to bring back, you know, one person that really has this example that I've really that's come into my life recently is Nathan Corbett, Nathan Carter's Corbett. He's a world time champion, and um
He's a cool guy. I like watching his
he's
posts.
not only a freaking goat, but when you spend time with this person, not even training or anything, like if you step in the same room with this guy, he just radiates energy, and he radiates like we had a conversation, the same conversation you and I are having right now on what the hell is wrong with the world. And if you were to oversimplify that answer, it's like we got to bring back the old ways of just like if I say something, I mean it. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to be there. And I'm not perfect by any means, but I do feel I'm a better off than a lot of these types that are like for XYZ we're talking about, like people freaking twerking, the constant fake validation on Instagram, the toxicity, the you know, the just fakeness and on every surface. And you know, I said, I was just like, I even said this to him, I was just like, dude, like you're honestly like a higher superior version of like kind of what the world needs. And he was just like, man, someone told me that last week. And um but we could, man, if um anyone could just have an ounce of what that guy had, man, I honestly like life would not only be better for you, it'd be more fulfilling, it'd be better for those around you.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what it is, man. And one of the things I learned through Christianity is if you don't know what to do, serve. If you're not
Yeah,
sure what you want to do, serve somebody else until you figure it out because you can't go wrong with that by default.
yeah, feels
And
good, man.
yeah, and honestly, man, I'm gonna wrap it up. I just want to commend you. I think you're a great athlete. Maybe we could do this again and just maybe focus more on fights and maybe dig into your fighting mentality and how you prepare with wins and losses. You don't have many losses, but you got quite a bit of wins. But we can do and talk about that. But yeah, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to do this. Thanks for talking
Mark.
about your passion. I respect your skill. I respect what you are in your community. I see the difference. I see how you interact with people in the gym. I think you're a really good human being, and I look forward to having my potential fighters meet you guys and learning from you, and especially myself learning from you guys too.
Dude, I gotta say the same about you, man. You're a real G, man. You've been in it forever, and I've always admired how you speak to your people. When I'm always on the side running my clients, man, I'm always listening in, and like, man, you've got truth bombs, and I learned from this podcast. I appreciate you, man.
All right, brother. Take care. Thank you so much. God bless.
Yeah, Mark.